Welcome back to Smart Life. Just a reminder, you can watch us live in cities around the country on Biz TV, growing all the time. Now on the air in New York, Philadelphia, Orlando. Biz TV is your biz. And of course, you can view past episodes of Smart Life at moneybizlife.com. Now, we all face criticism in the workplace, and sometimes it's necessary, especially for those of us in leadership positions. We have to dish out that criticism. It's a necessary component. There are a lot of people out there who are terrible at criticizing others, and you may be one of them. Keith Wyche is the author of Corner Office Rules, and he is here to help. Keith, welcome to Smart Life.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Dr. Gina.
No, it's really good to have you. And one of the things you've done is you've worked with corporations in actually training people how to deliver that criticism. It causes so much anxiety. What is it about just being in the workplace and confrontation that can be almost a magnified level of anxiety where we're dealing with criticism?
Well, we work in a very competitive marketplace right now. And so criticism can be viewed as I'm not qualified or I'm not good enough to do this job. And so now my employment is threatened. Or it can be I'm trying to move up in the organization. And if I'm overly criticized, that means that my chances are limited.
And so some of the things I said in the monologue leading up to the criticism, there needs to be sort of a stage set. But I've noticed this with people that work with me, when I say, hey, I need to talk to you a little bit later, they kind of at that moment go, oh, like there's this, it's a terrifying thing for a boss to say, I need to speak with you privately. So what is the entree when you're going to give some of that negative feedback?
Well, the first thing I say is be timely. What I mean by that is don't say, hey, I need to talk to you, and don't set a time, because now I'm going to worry and wonder what have you. So you want to be timely. Secondly, and you said this earlier, you want to be behind closed doors. You want it to be private, because those two things, being timely and being private, takes a lot of the anxiety out of it.
And so, once we are going to tell them, what is the best way to break it to an employee? Do you just say, hey, I'd like to have a meeting with you at 3 o'clock, and don't really say why? And then you go behind closed doors and you open and tell us a little bit more about how that exchange should go.
Sure. It'd be say, I really need to see you, Dr. Gina, at about 3 o'clock in my office. Just come on by. Again, you don't want to be too intimidating, too threatening. And once that dialogue starts, I like to be a couple things. One, fact-based. I never want to do anything out of hearsay or assumptions. Secondly, I want to take the emotion out of it as well, because I think that criticizing is something that, you're criticizing the behavior, not the person.
That's it.
I think tone is important. You should speak with a spirit of betterment, not bitterment or condemnation. And I always say, give tangible examples. Don't be generic in your criticism. Help people understand, here's what it looks like when you do this. And then you should always allow for discussion or clarification. And last but not least, you should always offer suggestions on how to improve or how to handle that situation differently.
So do you advise, Keith, opening with positive feedback, or not really, because then it might make that seem disingenuous because you're going straight into the criticism?
I think it will depend on the person. There's a school of thought that says you start off with, hey, here's a few positive things, and then here are things that you may have to work on. So for me personally, the higher up you are in my organization, the more direct I'm going to be with the feedback. But if you're a few levels below me, again, I don't want to scare you. I don't want to spook you. The whole purpose is to get you better. And so I will tend to maybe couch criticism with some praise, just to let you know that, you're not all bad. Here are things that you do well.
And so, because some of these meetings, that you're going to have with people, they really are on the chopping block. I mean, they need to pull it together. And this might even be one of your top people. I mean, we've all had those experiences. So in that particular scenario, how honest do you be with employees? Hey, if this doesn't improve, we're going to have to look at letting you go. Are those the kinds of things you say, or is that really a thing of yesteryear?
Well, no, I think what happens is you have to have what I call progressive discipline. So that shouldn't be your first conversation. Before you get to that point, there should have been some earlier conversations identifying behaviors that weren't appreciated or weren't respected, and then giving a chance to correction. So when you have that tough conversation that you just mentioned, it should be no surprise to either party.
Shockingly, the numbers are that most employers don't give a lot of feedback at all, praise or criticism. Basically, they have employees, maybe the employees will hear say through the company that there's some sort of criticism of them, but the employee never hears it directly from the manager or the supervisor or the boss of the organization. And so when that person is then fired, it comes as a complete shock. And a lot of times with no real construction in the matter, in other words, this person's going to go on to the next job and have no clue what they did wrong and most likely do it again, because the fact is that most people who are employees have never been bosses, so they don't even know how to gauge that. What is the disconnect? Why are employers not understanding that they need to give feedback, positive and negative, to their employees?
Yeah, I think, because most people have a hard time with what I call courageous conversations. However, I think any leader that's worth their salt needs to help their employees, help their workers understand here's what you do well, here's what you don't do well.
Hmm.
One of the things I recommend for the folks who I coach is you should go to your boss or your manager at least 4 times a year, quarterly, to say, hey, I'm open. I want some feedback. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well?
Hmm.
Because if you don't do that, you can get to the end of the year and have one big surprise when it comes to bonuses or not even having a job.
So like anything else, even medicine today, we need to take it into our own hands as employees and be sure to ask our employer. Criticism is toughest at the top. I'm quoting you right now. Tell us why, and tell us how to thicken up our skin for that, Keith.
Tell us why. I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Tell
you.
us why criticism is toughest at the top. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me, but I just want to hear from you. Why is it that criticism is the toughest at the top?
Well, the first thing is at the top, everything you do is visible. Someone once said that the higher a monkey goes up the tree, the more his backside you can see. And so you're a bigger target, you're a visible target. And people, it's very easy to be a critic. And so that's one of the biggest reasons. Secondly, you're making decisions that impact people's lives.
Mm.
And that's scary for some folks. And so, when you step into a senior leadership role, you have to understand criticism is a given, and you have to learn to deal with it.
And don't you think, too, there's like a mental component of that? Something along the lines of, hey, if you are receiving harsher criticism, you said, I'm more direct with my most valuable employees, because I figure their bosses, too, they get that we have time constraints and everything else. We have priorities, and we need to get this problem taken care of, get it out of the way so we can move on. But don't you think, too, that it's sort of a mental shift that takes place somewhere up the ladder where you realize that, oh, wow, if I'm getting this criticism, and if it is harsher and harder, and perhaps more concrete and direct, then that must mean that I really am going places. There's a point in your life where you kind of get that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the organization, but you'll cross that career threshold where you'll understand the importance of it, and you will take that less of a threat and more of a development opportunity or a chance to become better.
Mhm.
In my cases, I had a coach assigned to me one time to help me through that threshold.
Many have debated this, but I always love to ask my people who have as much experience as you do. Leadership by love or leadership by fear? Both are apparently effective. Sometimes fear is a little more effective, but it's not really the trend today. It's almost like we're competing for the best people today. So talk to us about those two things that are very, very popular age-old debate.
Yeah, and you can say love or fear, but to me, it's about respect. At the end of the day, people want to follow leaders that have integrity, leaders that respect them, leaders that, as you say, offer a chance to get feedback. We love an emperor that says, "Hey, tell me if I have no clothes on." And so, I knew people want to be valued at work, and so I believe in valuing them. But fear doesn't work. Theory X leadership has gone out the window, and the millennial generation, which is coming on board, really, they don't react and respond very well to that.
So criticism can be a little bit more general, needs to be specific, but can be a little bit more general. Praise coming off as authentic to your employees, critical. Explain the technique there.
Yeah, I believe praise takes place two places. One, in public. I criticize behind closed doors. I praise in public. But I will tell you, and I've been on both sides of this equation. There's also something to be said to one-on-one praise, where you take me in your office, eyeball to eyeball, and you let me know how valuable I am to you or how proud you are of
Hmm.
me. And employees need that. We want to feel valued. People don't quit companies; they quit bosses. And so
Hmm.
you want to be a leader or a boss that really, values your employees and make them feel that they're part of the organization.
But intimacy is so awkward in the workplace, and to really give personal, detailed praise, it feels really intimate. Some people just aren't that intimate. What is your advice to those people?
Well, again, some people really struggle with that. You're right. And so for those folks, I would tell you just, if you're going to be a leader, you have to try and work through that. At the end of the day, we all want to feel valued. We all want to feel like we're worthwhile. And people need to hear that praise. Now, there's certain people who don't like to receive that praise, and that's tough too. And so for those folks, I don't put them on a big stage, and I don't, put them in front of 1,000 people. But I'll send them a letter. I'll write them a note to let them know I value them.
Thanks so much for being with us, Keith. Remind us where we can find your work.
Yes, you can find me at keithwyche.com. That's KeithWyche, or follow me on Twitter at Keith Wyche.
Awesome. And where can we get your book?
Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. We enjoyed it.